Have you ever noticed how incredibly easy it is to banish the dark today? You simply reach out, flick a plastic switch, and your room floods with artificial daylight. We stay up late scrolling on our glowing phones while sitting safely on comfortable couches. For us, the night is just a quiet, relaxing time to unwind and fall asleep. But long before glowing screens and secure locks, the night was a time of absolute terror. Imagine a world completely devoid of streetlights, flashlights, and even the comforting glow of campfires. For millions of years, early humans had to survive pitch-black darkness without ever mastering fire. The moment the sun began to dip below the horizon, everything changed for our ancestors. The warm, safe daylight slowly bled into long, menacing shadows stretching across the grassy savanna. Without the sun, the temperature plummeted rapidly, sending a bitter chill through their unprotected skin. Early humans simply did not have the luxury of thick fur coats to keep perfectly warm. Human beings are biologically categorized as diurnal creatures, meaning we are built entirely for the daytime. Our daily survival depends entirely on our highly developed vision to spot food and distant threats. When darkness swallowed the landscape, our greatest evolutionary advantage was instantly ripped away from us. The ancient human eye was incredibly poor at gathering the scarce ambient light of the moon. In the dense forests and tall grasses, they were practically blind the moment twilight faded away. This sudden blindness left them incredibly vulnerable in a world crawling with massive, hungry apex predators. While humans lost their sight entirely, the ancient predators of the night were just waking up. Giant saber-toothed cats possessed specialized reflective layers in their eyes to amplify the faintest starlight. Massive prowling cave hyenas could easily track the terrified scent of a frightened human from miles away. Terrifying ancient leopards stalked silently through the dense brush without making a single sound on dry leaves. For these highly evolved nocturnal killers, the pitch-black dark was not a hindrance but perfect hunting camouflage. Our vulnerable ancestors knew that stepping out into the open at night was an immediate death sentence. There was absolutely no fighting back against a massive beast you could not even see charging you. A sharpened wooden spear is practically useless when your target is completely cloaked in pitch-black shadows. To survive the night, they had to rely on extreme evasion and incredibly strategic shelter choices. Before the magical invention of fire to scare beasts away, sleeping safely on the ground was impossible. Early human species like Australopithecus would desperately climb high up into the massive canopy of tall trees. They would carefully weave branches together to create crude, temporary sleeping nests far above prowling predators. But sleeping in the high branches brought its own terrifying set of extremely fatal daily survival risks. As humans slowly evolved and grew much larger, climbing flimsy trees to sleep became incredibly physically difficult. Early Homo sapiens had to start seeking out completely different kinds of natural fortresses to survive nightfall. They began desperately searching for shallow, rocky caves carved deeply into the sides of sheer cliff faces. A good, dry cave offered solid stone walls to protect their backs from a sudden ambush attack. However, the gaping mouth of the cave was still a wide-open doorway into their fragile, defenseless bedroom. Sometimes a terrified group of early humans would discover that a hungry leopard had already claimed the cave. When a terrifying predator slowly approached the cave entrance in the rain, they were completely trapped inside. They could only sit frozen in utter terror, clutching their primitive spears and desperately praying to survive. Without the warm light of a campfire, these long nights were agonizing tests of pure psychological endurance. The human nervous system rapidly adapted by maintaining a constant, exhausting state of hypervigilant panic and stress. Even the slightest snap of a dry twig would send adrenaline flooding instantly through their hearts. This extreme biological stress response technically kept them alive, but made finding true rest almost entirely impossible. You might reasonably wonder how a fragile species could possibly survive without ever getting a good night's sleep. The fascinating secret lay heavily in their tight-knit communities and their revolutionary strategy of staggered group sleep schedules. The golden rule was that absolutely not everyone in the vulnerable tribe would close their eyes simultaneously. The tribal group naturally divided into entirely different sleep cycles based heavily on their age and genetics. The older elders of the tribe would often naturally stay completely awake long into the darkest midnight hours. Meanwhile, the youngest teenagers would wake up incredibly early to officially take over the crucial morning guard duty. It practically ensured there was always at least one pair of sharp eyes watching the shadowy tree line. When a designated lookout nervously spotted a massive moving shadow, they could absolutely not risk a loud shout. A loud, panicked noise would immediately give away their hidden location to every hungry predator roaming miles around. Instead, they had to desperately communicate their rapidly mounting terror in complete and utter, breath-holding, absolute silence. This incredibly desperate need for silent nighttime communication actually fundamentally changed the biological structure of our human eyes. Humans rapidly developed highly visible bright white sclera directly around our dark pupils, unlike almost any other primate. The contrasting bright whites of their darting eyes allowed them to easily track each other's gazes in moonlight. The physical, shared warmth of the tightly packed group provided the only shred of soothing comfort in a hostile universe. The absolute terrifying deprivation of sight during these brutally long nights forced their other delicate senses into extreme overdrive. Every single painstakingly passing minute sitting frozen in the absolute darkness felt like an agonizingly slow eternity of pure survival. The massive psychological toll of helplessly enduring this nightly terror literally rewired the complex human brain for countless generations onward. Evolution firmly and permanently embedded a deep, profoundly irrational fear of the dark directly into our fundamental biological programming forever. Those who bravely or foolishly wandered out into the alluring moonlight simply vanished into jaws and never passed on genes. When the starry sky finally began to lighten slightly with the approaching dawn, an overwhelming wave of emotional relief washed over them. The rising golden morning sun practically meant that they had miraculously successfully cheated an early death for one more day. This brutally unyielding, exhausting cycle of brief daytime safety and endless nighttime horror defined early human existence for countless millennia. It perfectly explains why mastering fire wasn't just a convenient tool, but the most important, life-saving breakthrough in all human history. So, the absolute next time you quickly reach over to turn off your modern bedroom lamp before going to sleep, take just one very brief second to deeply appreciate the absolute miracle of your warm, incredibly safe, and brightly illuminated sanctuary. Because for millions of incredibly long, horrifying years, that same enveloping darkness was the most terrifying, deadly force on planet Earth.